The Technology Modernization Fund will get $1 billion cash infusion soon, but the systems the money fixes will still have to interface with legacy systems. That integration could make or break the success of the new systems. Horace Blackman is Senior Vice President of Consulting Services at CGI. He's former acting consumer advocate for benefits at the Department of Veterans Affairs. Horace, it's great to see you again. Thanks for coming on the program. When you have stuff that's ancient that you're grafting new stuff onto, how do you choose where the edge of the old stuff that you can keep is and where you have to modernize, where you have to upgrade?
So, Francis, first of all, thanks for having me. The idea, a lot of folks think technology is fairly a mystified deal, but, most people deal with these kinds of decisions in their own daily lives. The edge is really about a cost paradigm. It's the cost point where you're spending way too much and you're not getting the functionality from the legacy systems and getting to the point where you want to make the investments into the new system. But we've had that choice for a very long time. It's the buy versus continue to invest in the legacy systems. But I think as we progress in some of the systems that we think through these things, there really is a third option that we are increasingly looking at as well, which is really reimagining the value chain and looking at some disruptive kinds of things. Using the car analogy where you put money into your old car versus you buy a new one, there may be another option, like the analogy of something like Zipcar, to really think about something that breaks through that mold altogether. But to specifically answer your question, the nexus is that point where you're spending a lot of money maintaining legacy systems that are not giving you the functionality that's out there in terms of some of the emerging technologies and emerging systems.
So the only shortcoming I see in that, in the car analogy, Horace, is that if I'm doing that, I can take Uber for a couple of days till I figure out what I do. A federal agency has to keep doing the mission, whatever it is, while it's in the process of fixing. It's the old, fixing the airplane while it's in the air kind of analogy.
So, Francis, you're absolutely right. The mission never ends. The mission is not, there's no political partisanship to the mission, et cetera. But one of the things I think that's most important to think about is, are we leveraging technology as that force multiplier to be able to empower and enable the mission in the most efficient manner? I think the nexus of where that has to really lie is around that trade-off of efficiency and cost spend. I think we've seen a lot of programs that we put in place that really haven't achieved some of the same functionalities as the legacy system. They've fallen short on the interoperability, and I think really optimizing those things to make sure you're achieving the overall the old iron triangle of scope, cost, and schedule when you implement these new systems, while at the same time being able to provide any requisite legacy integration that you may need, that it's there.
I want to go back to that idea that you mentioned a moment ago of reimagining the value chain, was the way that you said it. When you're talking about that, are you talking about the business processes that an organization undertakes to deliver the mission? Are you talking about the functionality that they need to do that? Or maybe even the actual mission itself, or maybe all of those things, or did I miss it altogether?
No, Francis, you're dead on. And I would say it's a combination of the first two. The IT at its core is an enabling capability to enable the mission to accomplish what needs to be accomplished. So I think when we talk about reimagining the value chain, it's looking at the mission and asking the question, how can we best leverage technology to support this mission? We've seen this happen across government. The line of business initiative is a great example of this. There are programs such as the CDM, the Continuous Diagnostic and Monitoring, where those capabilities were centralized within one agency, and that agency becomes a service provider for a number of other agencies. And we've seen that work incredibly well in things like some shared services initiatives, such as payroll, et cetera. Once upon a time, every federal agency had a payroll system, a payroll function, but we've reimagined those, and those things have been consolidated to a few agencies. We've seen the efficiency out of that. We've seen the value chain be imagined and be reimagined in some other ways that's been exceptionally helpful as well.
Where are there the most ripe opportunities, do you think, to reimagine value chains inside federal agencies, Horace?
Commonality of functions and commonality of processes is probably the first place you want to look at. I kind of harp on the continuous diagnostic and monitoring effort that's been going on now for, goes back to my days in government, so at least about 10 years. That's a great example of a contract vehicle, the initiative that was blended with a contracting vehicle that was put together, had the buy-in of a number of agencies, had the blessing of OMB. It was centralized within DHS. And, we're getting on to year 8, 9 of that program. And that program has worked exceptionally well. A number of agencies are leveraging that. We have transparency in terms of what's happening across government. And we are actually centralizing those capabilities, that capabilities within DHS. There is it's now a natural center of excellence that's been established there. So that's an example of one that's worked exceptionally well. You think about the line of business initiative that dates back even further, things such as grants management, payroll, and a number of other functions that have been centralized to our organizations like DFAS and the Department of Commerce. We've seen those work exceptionally well as well. So the systems are going to run their course. We think about this from the overall total cost of ownership paradigm that we've thought about. There's a point in time where we have set an expiration date, if you will, a useful life of technologies, and some of these big systems are no different. So we've got to get to the point where once we hit that, there is a natural decision nexus of what needs to be done. Whether we want to do some things to augment those legacy systems to give them a little bit more useful life, whether we want to build a new systems that replaces that function, or whether we want to think about doing something entirely different.
Horace Blackman, great to have you back on the program. Thank you.
Hey, thank you very much. Good to see you again.